I am going to take today to talk about how this book correlates to women, as well as how it correlates to the Bible and God's word, as well as how it correlates to my own personal world this week and my garden. So I can't wait. And so thank you for allowing me to be here in my hoodie. So if any of you are feeling like me, let's talk about this block that I've been feeling, okay? This block is an accumulation of grief that I have had really since this year started, but predominantly in February. There's been a lot that's come out in the United States since February. Month, as much as it's been super strenuous on my faith, it's actually brought me so much deeper to my knees and to my heart and just trying to get through. So if you're anything like me, maybe you've been feeling alone as well. Maybe you have been feeling like your prayers are going unanswered or they're going straight to the ceiling. But any type of feeling around being disconnected or distracted, those are the themes in my life recently. So I feel so excited to talk about it because it's just real. And I think something that our generation craves is reality and connection. When the prophets needed to speak to God, where did they go? They went straight up to the mountain. They went to be with nature. They sat in the wilderness. They fasted. They pulled away from society to have that moment and that stillness. And, it even talks about when they go to these places to separate themselves from the community that they waited. So, when you keep that in mind and then you're kind of like, well, why am I disconnected? I've downloaded an app this week that's really been able to monitor me, and it allows me to go on media a certain amount of times a day, and then it just locks me off for the day. But I think that being able to do that has allowed me to come back to my own thoughts. And in that, you guys, like thinking about social media and like the serotonin and the dopamine that you get from it, and also the withdrawal that you get when you have to go off of it, right? Like you miss it, or you're like, well, what am I missing out on? Or what's so-and-so going to post about that I'm not going to see? You kind of have this sense of a withdrawal, literally like a drug. But once you go a layer deeper than that and you come to just like coming back to yourself, coming back to your heart, coming back to your mind, coming back to your own originality, it feels clearing. So I started reading this book, and I am just going to rant about it for a minute because I'm only to chapter 3. But guys, you get off social media for one day and you read the beginning, like the beginning intro, and then 3 whole chapters in one day. And that was after I did work all day. And that's also still before I'm recording this podcast and it's daylight outside. Like the things you can really get done when you get off of social media. The book is called The Interior Castle, and the author is Saint Teresa of Avila. Now, I believe that that's a little cute city in Spain. And yes, you heard me correctly. This is a saint. She wrote this book. It was published in 1577, but it took her like 15 years to write all of this and put it all together. And then it was passed to all of her like upper saints. Again, I don't know how it all works, but like the literature was passed up to others to be approved, and they all like adored it and basically preserved it. And it's literally a book that I'm reading today. It's so cool to be able to listen to, number 1, a female, number 2, a female that's a Christ follower, and number 3, a female that's a Christ follower that's writing from 1577. And then number 4 is a female that's a Christ follower writing in 1577 that is struggling with the same things that I struggle with today. She describes this interior castle as your inner human soul that is essentially like a beautiful crystal castle. So inside your castle are different mansions. And she goes into these mansions, and there's actually 7. But in the center of the castle is where Christ dwells. So her mission in this book is to kind of get across the point that the spiritual journey is not an outward journey. It is a full inward journey. And you guys, I have been crying on and off all day. That's the other thing I didn't say. Since I opened my heart up to try and read and to try and move this block out of my heart today, I have just been crying over and over again, just releasing and crying, not even knowing why I'm crying, but I'm just in my feels. Today's message is going to resonate with so many because I think that a lot of people that want to leave Christianity, or we could say any religion, I think people leave because they get caught up in the people and in the ticking the boxes. The beauty and the simplicity of this book is it takes the full opposite lens. It's a saint. It's a woman that is so committed to Christ, has given her life and her dreams up to worship Jesus Christ. She is speaking to the opposite. She believes that like the answer is so simple that you just go inward, and that inwards is where you find love. One of the things that she wrote about that literally it stopped me as I'm like chopping up my vegetables and making dinner. I was listening to the audio version and I was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like I had to run over to my phone and pause it and then type it out. And she says, it is not necessary to think much in order to love much. What is needed is to love much. So do that which best stirs you to love. It's just like awakening this desire to love. I think why I resonated with this quote so much is because the largest part of my spiritual commitment and journey and legacy is truly just to loving humans. That is where God found me. Like when I didn't believe in God, God found me in a village in the outskirts, 3 hours away from Arusha, Tanzania, where I was with a tribe, feeling God in that moment with these children and realizing, oh, I found God through loving these people because these people are God. I felt that same way when I went to India. I felt that same way when I went to Egypt. I felt that same way when I went to Turkey. I felt that same way when I went to Uganda. It's the core base of my entire purpose of life is loving people. So the fact that Saint Teresa understands that, and she's basically just like, so then do it. Like if do whatever stirs you to love. So if that's cooking, do it. If that's dancing, do it. If that's interior design, do it. If that's football, do it. Like whatever stirs you to the essence of love, do it. And then she also talks about something called radical humility. She says, humility is the foundation of the entire spiritual life. The more a soul lowers itself in humility before God, the more that the Lord raises it up. We do not reach him by our merits alone, but by trusting completely in his mercy. I think it's comforting to just know that when we fall, that God isn't counting the number of times that we're falling down as like a merit of like failure or like a way to measure our successes versus our failures. It's by trusting completely in his mercy, meaning that we are capable of handling that rejection or that pivot or that redirection. We're trusting in our divine path and we're continuing to stand back up again or learning to walk again or learning to run again. Coming back to these little plant babies, I have cilantro, basil, green onions, and parsley behind me. This is my little herb garden. And then I've got veggies that I'm going to be growing this week and some cute blue flowers that are going to wrap around my yellow brick outside of my house. So I'm really excited. And so something that's been on my heart is like gardening. Why? I'm going to try and not get into the why on this episode, but I went down a nice little deep rabbit hole of conspiracies and also some factual evidence as well, right? And I just realized that like a lot of the food that we ingest is like very harmful. There's chemicals, like these are things that we know, right? It's very interesting that like humans will spray fruit and vegetables so that animals don't eat it and then we'll eat it. Like that's so like make that make sense. So as I've been, kind of like doing the spiritual deep dive in my own world, and then also just like living in the reality of the world, it's been really wild trying to bridge what I can bridge and trying to control what I can control and trying to let go of what I can't. And so something that I've felt passionate about is preparation. And I talked about that a little bit in the last couple episodes, but again, I can't control what the grocery store has and what they've sprayed on foods and what I'm ingesting. What I can really do to control that is try to control my nutrition, right? And so I am getting excited with this idea and concept of starting a garden. I guess it just brings me comfort to know that like if things were to go south, that, I am a little bit more sustainable and that I could like feed my babies if needed. Like learning that skill is obviously a great skill to have, but then on top of that, it just makes me feel a little bit more at ease. On a larger and a more spiritual scale of this garden, I've thought, I really want a clear intuition right now. The world is only getting more chaotic and more loud. And I feel that the best way to have the strongest intuition is to be aware of my nutrition, is to be aware of my alert and sound mind, and just keeping my body in the rhythm of healthy habits. As I've been researching and preparing this garden concept over the last week, I've also thought, I'm thinking so much about my spiritual preparation. No, I just gave it away. I've been thinking so much about my physical preparation. I have given no thoughts to my spiritual preparation. But then how that all comes back to this book, what I'm learning is like, I've already almost killed 2 of the plants in 1 week. And so, they're temperamental and they all have a different personality, and I'm trying to get to know them. But growing a garden takes patience. And how is that not spiritual? Like, God speaks to us through all of his creation. You prepare the soil, you plant the seeds, you water the seeds, and then you try and take care of the weeds that are trying to choke the life out of your beautiful creations, your plants. And then you have to be patient, allow the environment to just be. And as the environment is, then you just kind of give it a little bit more of what you think it needs. And how is that not a direct mirror into our own spiritual lives? We cannot control our environments, but we have to just be and give ourselves those little doses of more sunlight, more water, more nutrition. And we can't hurry up and grow. Another part of the book that is just so relatable to me is Saint Teresa talking about spiritual dryness. And this is real. It doesn't make me feel great to admit that I have spiritual dryness, Think about how much spiritual dryness there is, and then how much we are adding to that versus how much we can improve that. Maybe there are just those quiet seasons where God is doing the hidden work within our lives, just like within my garden that I'm trying to cultivate. I can't see what's underneath that dirt until it starts to blossom and bloom, but I'm not going to deny that there's nothing going on under that dirt. Only a matter of time before I start to see the fruits of my labor, right? So it's the exact same on an internal level with my spiritual journey inward. So even if there's that spiritual dryness, that's a part of the process, and that's okay. We can't always be freshly baptized every single day of our life. Having that duality is needed, right? God creates duality everywhere. And that's why I actually love duality, is because it's a beautiful mirror. There is daylight and there is nighttime. There is the sun and there is the moon. There is hot and there is cold. So if you find yourself in a moment of spiritual dryness, like I kind of recognized within myself today, little things that we could be doing to try and better ourselves are small, nourishing things like drinking more water, having electrolytes, waking up 5 minutes earlier to at least read a verse from the Bible, finding one more moment in the day to say a prayer, eating from the earth, more mindful of our phones, stepping away from noise of the world, finding this space to meditate every day. All of these little things will guarantee that you feel just a teeny bit better day to day. Little by little, these tiny acts continue to prepare the soil of our heart for Christ to be able to continue to dwell within. I am going to be continuing to read this book. I'm sure I'll share more next week on more of the different mansions and the spaces to identify within your own heart of maybe which mansion, which room you're in. Wherever you're at right now, just take a slow, deep breath. It is not a race. It is not a sprint. This is just a beautiful little awakening that we're all on. Saint Teresa also expresses that when you are trying to go inwards into your mansion to be with Christ, that it is okay to allow your thoughts to be in the courtyard. As you go inwards and you start to meditate and you sit quietly and you try and take those deep, slow breaths, that if you're still thinking about your day, or if you're still thinking about who's going to reach out later, if they're going to text you back, or you're trying to plan what outfit you're going to wear this weekend to your girls' trip or whatever, those things are allowed to be there. And you don't have to push them away and banish them either. They're allowed to be in the home with you, but maybe not in the living room, maybe not in the bedroom, but they can still be in the courtyard of the home. To end this episode, I would love to offer a moment of silence for each of us to sit and envision our dream castle, our inner mansion, and try and design it in your mind and think about how shiny and brilliant and light and bright that castle looks for you, and try to go inwards and see if you can find Jesus within and just sit with him for just a moment. I'm just going to give us a little bit of time to just sit here for a second. Okay. Thank you for sitting there and doing that with me. I hope that you now have a clearer vision of your inward castle. Scripture reminds us that Jesus is near the brokenhearted. So if you are hurting and you're in that season, please know that you are not walking that path alone. The journey inwards takes time and patience and discipline and forgiveness and humility. And just like a garden, it's patient. So wherever you are at with that journey, I am grateful that you are here with me today. Thank you for tuning in another week. And if you feel so called to, please, I would love it if you shared this on your story or shared this with a friend or left a review. Obviously, that helps my little baby grow. And these are messages of love and light that I would love more ears around the world to hear. Until next time, take care of your inner garden. Mwah.